The night is as bright as ink, and the lights and fires on the high-rise buildings of the city are like a pair of eyes exploring. Meng Qi stood in the backstage of the university lecture hall and just ended a lecture on criminal psychology. The sound of the audience was still in her ears. She had already put away her professional smile and her eyes were coldly swept over the speech in her hand. As a criminal psychologist, she was used to analyzing other people's hearts, but tonight, she was ignorant of something wrong, a feeling of being watched, like a detailed spider, lying in her heart. Sister Meng Qi, today's talk is so exciting. Assistant Yutong ran over from the backstage, holding a bunch of information in her hand, full of admiration on her face, especially when you talked about that murderer case. Everyone in the audience was stunned. Meng Qi smiled lightly and took the mineral water from Yutong. I've been too sure, I just wrote the truth out. But how did you organize the information? Recently, there are still some cases that have written the psychological side of it. Yutong was about to answer, but suddenly took out a letter from her pocket and sent it to Meng Qi. Yes, a staff member said that this was something that someone had specially left to you. It looks quite formal, and I didn't dare to dismantle it. Meng Qi raised her eyebrows slightly and took the letter. The envelope was ordinary white, and there was no sender or posting mail. Only her name was written in the center with a black steel pen, and the characters were neatly written like a deliberate imitation of printing. Her fingers gently rubbed the edge of the envelope, and the anxiety in her heart suddenly magnified. The next second, she tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter. The content of the letter was very short, with only a few lines of words, like a memorization, smashing into her heart. Miss Meng Qi, do you think the truth is really buried in the old case 10 years ago? Your family tragedy is closely related to the unsolved tragedy. If you want to know everything, start with the file in the file room. A person who knows the truth. There was a cold pick in the lines in the characters. Meng Qi's fingers were unconsciously retracted, and a few folds were pinched out of the letter paper. The family tragedy 10 years ago was the deepest scar in her heart. The police rushed to investigate the strange death of their parents, and all the traces were wiped out by an invisible hand, leaving her with no doubts and pain. She thought she had learned to hide this pain, but this letter was like a sharp knife, easily tearing open the fitting wound. Sister Meng Qi, what's wrong with you? Your face is not very good. Yutong came over and was full of concern for her. Meng Qi quickly adjusted her expression, folded the letter paper and stuffed it into her pocket, and her voice was as calm as if nothing had happened. It's okay, it's just a little tired. You go back first, I'll handle the matter myself. Although Yutong was full of suspicion, she still pointed, then don't be too late. I'll send you the latest information tomorrow morning. Watching Yutong leave, Meng Qi turns to the back door of the lecture hall, and the staff around her are busy packing the equipment, and no one notices her strangeness. She stood in the dim hallway, closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The next second, her consciousness was like an invisible net, quickly spreading and capturing the hearts of everyone around her. This is her secret and her talent, reading skills. From a young age, she could hear the deep voices of others, the unspoken fears, slandering and desires, to her, were like open book pages. Over the years, she learned to control this ability and only used it at key moments, and now, this letter has forced her to open this dangerous door again. This woman said really well, she was a little scary, and she felt that she could see through me. A staff member's heart was flying away from a distance, with a little uneasy. I finished packing up early, and I had to work overtime when I went back. Another person's heart was dull and unsurprising. Dream Chi's idea was swept through circles and tried to find any traces related to this letter. At this moment, a low voice suddenly entered her perception, as if it was coming from the corner of the crowd. The letter should be delivered to her, hoping that she could bite her. The police can't drag it anymore. Meng Qi suddenly opened her eyes locked on a man in a black coat in the corner of the lecture hall. He lowered his head and packed the equipment. There was no difference on the surface, but the owner who was jokingly asked him without any doubt. She walked over quickly and asked indifferently, "Sir, are you satisfied with the lecture just now?" The man was stunned for a moment, raised his head to Meng Qi's eyes, and immediately showed a formulaic smile. "Oh, it's pretty good, you've spoken wonderfully. Is that right? Meng Qi smiled gently, her eyes piercing straight into the other party's heart like a sharp knife. Then why do you look a little absent-minded? Are you thinking about something important, right? The man's smile froze for a moment, and his heart seemed to explode. How could she know? Meng Qi's mouthed slightly, her voice was still relaxed. It's okay, the lecture is over. If you are busy, just leave first. By the way, someone just sent me a letter. Do you have any impression? Believe? No. I haven't heard it. The man smiled twice, and then quickly lowered his head and continued to pack up his things. He gave him a heart to say, oh no, she is indeed suspicious. This woman is so evil, she has to inform him. Meng Qi didn't ask anymore, but just clicked the head and turned away. Her intuition told her that the man knew absolutely something, and the word, police, emerged from his voice, making her heart sank. Is it hard to tell if there is any connection between the police behind this letter? It was late at night when I got home. Meng Qi sat in the book room and opened the letter on the table. She read the few lines over and over again, and the scene from 10 years ago appeared in her brain, the funeral of her parents, the indifference of the police, and the unpublished investigation report. She knew that this letter was not a simple pick, but a key pointing to the truth that she had never dared to touch. She picked up her cell phone and clenched Yutong's number. Hey, Yutong, I'll help me check the old case tomorrow morning. It was about my family 10 years ago. I want all the files, reports, and even the internal records of the police. Yutong Ming, who was on the phone, was stunned. Sister Meng Qi, why did you suddenly? Okay, I started immediately. However, this old case file is probably going to ask people from the police for help. Do you have any people you know? Meng Qi was silent for a moment, and a name appeared in her brain. Yes. I will contact you. The next morning, Meng Qi came to a cafe near the city bureau and met with a contact from the police, Zhe Kai. She is not unfamiliar with this criminal policeman. She has worked with some cases several times before, but her relationship with each other is more about official business. Zhe Kai is a hardcore person, at the age of 30, and his eyes are as good as seeing through everything, but he always has some doubts about her abilities. Miss Meng Qi, I've had a date with me so early. What big case do you have? Zhe Kai sat down, ordered a cup of black coffee, and said with a little teasing in his language, are you going to use your psychology to get people in again? Meng Qi smiled, but didn't answer his words, but pushed the letter directly in front of him. You look at this first. Zhe Kai raised his eyebrows, took the letter and glanced a few times, and his face slowly calmed down. What does this mean? Who gave it to you? I want to know too. Meng Qi leaned against the back of the chair, her eyes calmly watching him. This letter mentioned an old case 10 years ago, which has something to do with my family. I need you to help me adjust the files from that year, including those that were not published. Zhe Kaiyanmiai put the letter back on the table. Yang Qi, the file is not a supermarket shelf, take it if you want. The case from 10 years ago has been concluded. Now you look out and you will be able to touch anything you shouldn't touch. It's been concluded. Meng Qi stopped him, and her words became colder. The report said it was an accident, but where did my parents' death seem like an accident? Tell me, what did you check at that time? Zhe Kai was silent, his eyes flashed with a flash of hesitation. Meng Qi didn't say anything anymore, but just looked at him quietly, and her consciousness quietly penetrated into his heart. Why is this woman still holding on? What happened 10 years ago has been under pressure, so how dare I say it casually? But, her eyes make people feel like nothing is too scared. Zhe Kai's heart was like a group of irritating, mixed with anxiety and sting. Meng Qi sang a little invisibly, and her words were refreshed. Shikai, I know you have concerns. But I am not here to find trouble, I just want to know the truth. You also know that my ability can help you solve many cases. This time, I owe you a favor, what if I do? Zhe Kai was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting that she would be so straightforward. His heart sank for a moment, and finally he sighed, Okay, this woman always has a way to make people feel bad. I can try the file, but if the above is blamed, I won't carry it. Okay. Meng Qi pointed her head, picked up the coffee and took a sip, covering the flashing smile in her eyes. After the file is tuned out, I will give it to me directly. I promise that I won't tiring you. Zai Kai stared at her for a few seconds, and finally agreed, it's done. But I warn you, Meng Qi, don't play too much. This case is not simple. Meng Qi didn't say anything more, just stared at his leaving behind. Her reading skills showed her power in front of Zai Kai for the first time. Although it was just a lightly descriptive move, it was enough to make the other party feel her unpredictable. This match, she won the first game, but she knew that the real challenge had just begun. What kind of secret is hidden behind that letter? And what is the person who calls himself knowing the truth? She looked down at the letter on the table, her eyes gradually getting colder. Morning light penetrated through the gaps in the window and entered the book room. Meng Qi sat at the table, holding the anonymous letter in her hand, and there were a bunch of old newspaper clippings and file copies compiled by Yutong every night. Her eyes were focused and cold, and her fingers tapped on the desktop, as if she was scribing an invisible picture in her brain. Although her conversation with Zai Kai last night gave her the promise of adjusting the file, she knew that the police would never be able to speak easily about the case 10 years ago. She had to dig out some wires herself before she could stand by her. Sister Meng Qi, I stayed up until 3 o'clock last night and read all the information I could find. Yutong pushed in, holding 2 cups of coffee in her hand, and was still tired of not waking up. There were not many reports 10 years ago, but several articles mentioned a series of missing incidents, which coincided with the time of the incident in your home. Look at this one. Yutong passed by a yellow paper clip, titled, The Lost Case in the North of the City, 3 people are missing. Meng Qi took a quick look and mentioned in the report that in the autumn of 10 years ago, 3 residents in the old city district in the north of the city were missing. After the police investigated, they found that the case was eventually characterized as suspected to have run away from home and left nothing. And her parents were in an accident during that time, a car accident that was quickly convicted by the police. The missed case and the car accident seem to be 2-digit matters, but the time is too coincidental. Meng Qi put down the newspaper and narrowed her eyes slightly. This letter said, unresolved tact, which should refer to this missed case. The letter also mentioned the file, indicating that the police must have more things that were not disclosed. Yutong spotted the head and took out a handwritten note from a pile of data. I also found out that among the 3 missing people, there was a woman named Lin Xiao. The last time she appeared before she missed was less than 2 kilometers away from the scene where your parents' car was. Moreover, some people said that she had mentioned before she missed that someone was following her, but the police did not take it seriously at that time. Meng Qi took the note and stayed on the 2 words, follow, for a moment. Her intuition told her that it was no coincidence. She picked up the anonymous letter and read the sentence, your family tragedy is closely related to the unsolved tragedy. A big guess appeared in her brain. If her parents' car was not an accident, but someone deliberately created it, then there might be some secret connection between the missed case and the car. Yutong, please help me check the background of these 3 missed people, especially Lin Xiao. Meng Qi's words were calm and had an unquestionable determination. I want to know all the details before she missed, including the people she knew, the places she often went, and the police's investigation records at that time. I understand. Yutong was excited and immediately opened the computer to search. She muttered, Sister Meng Qi, you feel like you are going to break up some big secret. Meng Qi didn't answer, but just looked down at the letter, her eyes gradually getting colder. She knew that the sender of this letter was not just trying to help her, but wanted to use her to lead her into a carefully designed situation. But she was not afraid. 10 years of waiting had long been learning to find light in the dark. A few hours later, Yutong ran into the bookroom excitedly, holding a newly printed piece of data in her hand. Sister Meng Qi, I found it. Lin Xiao, 35 years old, worked as a banker in a small supermarket in the north of the city. Before the loss, She had complained to her colleagues, saying that she always thought someone was monitoring her. Once she came home from get-off work and saw a man in black clothes following her in the alley. She reported to the police, but the police only did a simple record at that time, and there was no future. Meng Qi received the information and quickly flipped through it. Her eyes stopped at the last destination before the forest lost, a deserted alley in the old city area in the north of the city. It was indeed very close to the scene of her parents' car park. A sudden thought flashed through her brain: if she could find the target at that time, she might be able to dig out more traces. Yutong, help me contact Lin Zhao's colleagues at that time, or nearby residents, to see who still remembers that time. Meng Qi stood up and began to clean up the information on the table. I want to ask myself. Go away. Yutong was stunned and said worriedly, Sister Meng Qi, the north of the city is quite a bit unfair now. I heard that there has been a robbery recently. It's not safe for you to go alone. Meng Qi smiled lightly and patted her on the shoulder. Don't worry, I won't be reckless. Besides, I have my own life-saving talisman. Yutong knew that she was referring to the mental health, but although she was still worried, she didn't say anything more, just silently pointed and started to contact relevant people. In the afternoon, Meng Qi came to the old city area in the north of the city. This area has not been renovated for many years. The streets are narrow, and the old houses on both sides are broken, and the air is filled with a damp, musty smell. According to the address provided by Yutong, she found an old man named Zhang Dawei, who was an eyebrow living nearby when Lin Zhao lost his tracks and had been asked by the police that year. Zhang Dawei is nearly 70 years old and is sitting in his yard, holding an old smoke in his mouth and looking sluggish. When he saw Meng Qi, he felt a little impatient. Miss, have you asked such a long time ago? The police have asked many times. I have said it a long time ago. I haven't seen anything. Meng Qi smiled and said in a gentle manner, Dawei, I'm not here to trouble you, I just want to know the details. Lin Zhao missed that person, right? For example, did she mention any strange people or unusual things? Zhang Dawei curled his lips and shook his head. I don't remember. Who can remember what happened 10 years ago so clearly? I just remember that she is a peaceful person, nothing special. On the surface, Zhang Dawei's attitude is very cold, but Meng Qi is not in a hurry. She looked at the other person quietly, and her mind quietly unfolded, like an invisible net, touching the old man's heart. Why did this little girl still ask? I just lost someone, what's the use of asking? But I did see what I saw that night, but I dare not say what to do if I get into trouble. Zhang Deheo's heart continued, with heavy hesitation and anxiety. There was a flash of shiny eyes in Meng Qi's eyes, and her face was not swaying. She continued to say in a gentle manner, Dawei, don't be nervous, I just chatted casually. The night Lin Zhao lost track, you should be nearby, right? Have you heard anything calm or seen someone? Zhang Dawei was stunned for a moment, his eyes were hiding, and his mouth was still hard. No, there is nothing special. I went to bed early that day. How did she ask so much? Do you know what I was crazy about? No, I can't say that that place is too evil. I'm afraid something will happen if I say it. The old man's heart became more and more panicked, and Meng Qi captured the keyword, that place, in a slight manner. She smiled slightly, and her language became lighter. Dawei, it's okay, you just tell the story and say it casually. I heard that there was a deserted warehouse near that alley. I heard it was quite evil, do you know? Zhang Dawei's face changed, and the smoker in his hand almost fell off, and he hurriedly held his hand. I don't know, I don't know. Little girl, don't ask, please go away. Oh no, why did she mention that warehouse? That place is not in harmony. Before Lin Zhao lost the trap that year, I saw her walking there with her eyes, followed by a black shadow. But I dare not say, and said, what should I do if that person came back to find me? Zhang Dawei's heart was in a mess, and he was afraid that he would come up like a tide. Meng Qi didn't force her to ask any more, but just pointed her head and stood up and told her, okay, I've been punished. I won't ask any more, you can rest. After leaving the yard, Meng Qi walked to the corner of the street, stopped walking, her eyes were cold and sharp. Zhang Daoi's heart had given her the most important thread, the abandoned warehouse, the black shadow, and the tracks before Lin Xiao lost. This warehouse is likely to be the key point for unpacking the first-level group. When he got home, Meng Qi immediately asked Yutong to check the scrap warehouse information in the old city north of the city, and found a place that matched the description. A place that was abandoned 10 years ago was transferred to the store. Locals told me that there was a ghost in that place and no one dared to get close. She decided to go to investigate by herself, but before that, she needed more support. In the evening, Zai Kai called and said, "I'm here to help you with the file, but it's clear that this case is not allowed to be translated again. You can watch it yourself, don't connect me." Meng Qi took the electronic file he posted and took a quick look. There were indeed many undisclosed details in it, including the record of Lin Xiao's previous missed alarm, as well as the original record of some targeted vocal certificates. Her mouth slightly, and her words were relaxed. "Thank you, Zai Kai. I promise I won't mess with you. However, I have a new discovery that there is a waste warehouse in the north of the city, which may be related to the misunderstanding. I plan to go and see. Are you interested in being together?" The phone was silent for a few seconds, and Zai Kai's voice fell down. "Danqi, how did you find this place? Let me tell you not to come. That area is not safe. Recently, there are reports that someone has been staring at people related to the old case. If you go wrong, I can send someone to you, but you have to listen to my arrangement." Meng Qi raised her eyebrows slightly, and she captured the word staring sensitively. She pretended not to hear anything unusual and said with a smile, "Okay, I can't ask for anything with you police. I'll see you tomorrow morning and I'll send you the place." After closing the phone, Meng Qi stood in front of the window, looking far away at the city in the night. Zai Kai's words made her feel uneasy. Is someone staring at someone related to the old case? Could it be the sender of that letter? Or is there a greater force behind it? She looked down at the file on the table, her eyes gradually calming down. Regardless, she has taken the first step. The abandonment of the warehouse will be the starting point for her to reveal the truth. And reading the mind, her ability that she has hidden for many years, will become her most powerful weapon. She knew that the game had just begun, and no one else wanted to make her retreat. As the night became darker and deeper, Meng Qi picked up her phone and sent Yutong a message. "Go to the north of the city tomorrow and bring the photography equipment and recordings. We are going to dig out the first truth." After the message was released, she leaned on the back of the chair, closed her eyes, and the black shadow, in the voice of Zhang Daowei, appeared in her brain. The corners of her mouth slightly sneered, "I will find you no matter who you are." The morning light was light, and the streets of the old city area in the north of the city still had the smoke of last night, and the air was filled with a smell of old. Meng Qi was wearing a low-key black and gray sportswear, carrying a small bag, and stood at the entrance of the alley near the deserted warehouse, with her eyes coldly bending around. This area is even more deserted than she imagined. Most of the old houses next to it are empty. Occasionally, several elderly people who get up early and get rid of waste products have come over it and come to see a few curious eyes. "Sister Meng Qi, this place is really beautiful." Yutong followed her, holding a small camera in her hand, muttering in a whisper, "I just checked it. This warehouse was a cargo transfer 10 years ago. Later, it was abandoned due to several accidents. Everyone nearby said that this place was a ghost and even dogs dared to approach it at night." Meng Qi smiled lightly, but she didn't answer, her eyes closed on the broken building nowhere. The outer wall of the warehouse was covered with vines, and the iron door was covered with scattered spots. Through the gaps, you could see the black area inside, like a huge mouth that swallowed everything. Her straightforwardness told her that there was a secret hidden here, but at the same time, there was danger hidden. "Where is Zai Kai? Didn't you say you'll see you in the morning?" Yutong looked around and asked in a low voice. "He just sent a message saying that something was delayed and he would arrive later." Meng Qi glanced at her eyebrows, with a discomfort in her language. "But we can't wait. Let's go in and take some photos and record the scene. Any traces are there, and it's easy to compare with the file. Yutong was slightly lit up, and although she was still a little uneasy, she still followed Meng Qi to the warehouse gate. The iron door has been damaged for a long time, and it will make a harsh, squeak sound when you push it lightly, like some ominous sign. The two people crossed the door and entered the warehouse. The air was filled with a musty smell and dust. Under the feet was the broken cement floor, and occasionally the sound of water droplets falling on the ground. Meng Qi turned on the flashlight and the light column swept around, illuminating the broken scene inside the warehouse. Several broken pillars stood crookedly in the center, with old wooden boxes and iron skins scattered on the ground, and a pile of blackened objects piled up in the corners of the wall, like garbage that had been abandoned for many years. She noticed that there were some footprints on the floor of the warehouse, which, although blurry, did not look like they were left long ago. Someone has come here. Meng Qi squatted down, touching the ground with her fingers, and said in a low voice, "These footprints are very new, and they may have been left behind in these few days." Yutong came over and took pictures of the footprints with a camera, and there was a tight voice in her voice. "Sister Meng Qi, do you think it would be that person? The person who believes in it?" Meng Qi didn't answer, but just stood up and looked towards the deep corner of the valley. Her consciousness quietly unfolded, trying to capture any unusual silence, but there was no sound in her heart. This made her heart tight-knit. Although her reading skills were powerful, she could not do anything if the other party was not within the scope or deliberately hid it. "Let's walk in and see if there are any other lines." Meng Qi pressed a low voice and signaled Yutong to tighten herself. The two carefully walked through the center of the warehouse to a corridor leading to the backyard. The walls on both sides of the corridor are covered with falling paint, and the floor is smooth, like water is poured all year round. Meng Qi's flashlight swept across the corner of the wall and suddenly froze in one place. There was a small iron box half buried in gravel, with a few blurred letters engraved on the surface. "What is this?" Yutong rushed over curiously, and wanted to reach out to get it, but was grabbed by Meng Qi. "Don't touch it." Meng Qi's voice was low, and she stared at the iron box with a sharp look. This thing was too deliberately put, as if waiting for us to find out. Before she finished speaking, a light, click sound suddenly came from her feet, as if some kind of machine was being touched. The next second, a deep bird came from the depths of the warehouse, like a heavy object being activated. "Run!" Meng Qi grabbed Yutong and ran wildly in the direction when she came. But they just ran a few steps, and the ground under their feet suddenly moved, and several broken cement boards collapsed, revealing a dark pit. Yutong's foot slipped down and almost fell down. Fortunately, Meng Qi was quick-eyed and quick-handed, and grabbed her arm. "Be careful." Meng Qi bit her teeth tightly and pulled Yutong back, but the sound of the iron plate falling behind her was getting closer and closer, and there was a pungent smell in the air, like some kind of chemical medicine. "Sister Meng Qi, this is a trap." Yutong's voice was shaking and her face turned pale. "We have been calculated." Meng Qi didn't have time to answer, and she was analyzing the situation in the sea of fire. The iron plates closed the road, the ground collapsed, and the increasingly heavy smell, all this shows that someone had expected her to come here and carefully designed a killing game. She forced herself to calm down, and her consciousness expanded again, trying to find any possible exit. At this moment, a faint red light suddenly lit up in a corner of the warehouse, like some kind of signal light. Meng Qi's eyes were locked there, and she heard a low voice, as if it was coming from behind the wall. "Miss Meng Qi, you come faster than I expected. Unfortunately, you seem to be going to pass this game." The sound was cold and familiar, and it was carrying a slim slut, as if it was directly diamonding into her brain. Dream Qi's heart was shocked, and her mind was instantly concentrated in that direction, trying to capture the other person's heart. However, the other party seemed to have been ready, and the sound came to an abrupt end, leaving only a low laugh, followed by a dead silence. "It's him, the person who wrote anonymously." Meng Qi gritted her teeth and looked cold. "He is nearby." "Sister Meng Qi, it's not the time to say this." Yutong was sweating profusely and pointed at the iron plate that was approaching behind her. If you don't leave, we'll be done. Meng Qi took a deep breath and quickly looked around. She found a broken door on the side of the warehouse. Although it was blocked by mist, there was a faint light in the gap. She immediately pulled Yutong over and pushed the door together, and the two of them pushed the mess and finally opened the door. Behind the door is a deserted backyard, with grass growing, but at least a road to surviving. Go away. Meng Qi pushed Yutong out first, and then turned around and looked inside the warehouse. The red light had disappeared, but the chemical smell in the air became increasingly heavy, making her dizzy. She knew that she could not delay any more, so she quickly followed Yutong out of the backyard. The two of them ran for a few 10 meters, and suddenly there was a loud noise behind them, as if some kind of explosive device was detonated. Part of the walls of the warehouse collapsed, shattering the dust in the sky, causing Meng Qi and Yutong to fall to the ground. Meng Qi subconsciously recognized Yutong, and her ears were filled with a hot wave, and behind her was a hot wave. Sister Meng Qi, are you okay? Yutong was shocked and got up to check Meng Qi's situation, his voice full of anxiety. I'm fine. Meng Qi gritted her teeth and stood up, slapped off the dust on her body, and looked coldly in the direction of the warehouse. Her heartbeats are still fast, but her reason has regained its wind. She knew that this trap was not random, but a killing against her. The other party not only knew that she would come here, but even accurately calculated her mobile route. At this moment, Yutong suddenly pointed at something on the ground and exclaimed in a low voice, Sister Meng Qi, look at this. Meng Qi looked down and found a folded piece of paper lying on the ground, as if it was being brought out from the warehouse. A few lines of words were written on the paper with a black steel pen, and the words were exactly the same as the anonymous letter. Miss Meng Qi, congratulations on your survival. But this is just the beginning. The truth from 10 years ago is far darker than you thought. If you still want to continue, come and find me, Ming Xiu. Ming Hua. Meng Qi read this name, narrowed her eyes slightly, her fingers unconsciously tightened her fingers, and pinched the paper into folds. This is the first time that the other party has actively exposed his identity, but it still has a heavy and challenging meaning. She closed her eyes, her consciousness focused on that piece of paper, trying to capture any remaining emotion or voice. Reading the mind is not always effective at this time, but this time, she felt a strange thing, a mixed emotions of excitement, anger, and deep pain, like a group of sluts hidden behind the words. This person named Ming Hua has a very complicated psychological state, as if he was driven by some kind of thought, and his connection with the old case is far more than superficially provoked. He is not a pure enemy. Meng Qi opened her eyes quietly and murmured in a low voice, he has a deeper connection with what happened 10 years ago. Sister Meng Qi, what are you talking about? Yutong didn't hear clearly and looked at her with her face full of concern. It's nothing. Meng Qi slammed her head, stuffed the paper into her pocket, and turned her head to Yutong. You go back first, organize the things you took today, and don't let anyone know about it. Although Yutong was full of doubts, she still pointed and helped Meng Qi walk out of the alley. At this moment, a rapid pace came from the entrance of the alley. Zai Kai hurried over with a few plainclothes police officers. Seeing the two wolf-like figures, his face suddenly sinks. Danqi, what's going on with you? Didn't you say you'd wait for me to move? Zai Kai's words were filled with anger, but his eyes were more worried. I just heard that sound exploded, and I heard it in half the north of the city. What exactly happened? Meng Qi didn't rush to answer, but just looked at him quietly, and her mind quietly penetrated into his heart. Zai Kai's heart was as straightforward as ever, with a heavy grief. Why is this woman so unheard? If I had known that, I would have sent someone to follow her first. The explosion must be investigated. If it were ever a problem, the old case would be involved. Those inside would not let go easily. Wait, inside? Could it be that someone is leaking the secret? Meng Qi captured the keyword, inside, with her eyebrows slightly raised, her face was not swaying, and her words were calm. Zhikai, we are fine, we just encountered a little trouble. Someone in the warehouse set up a trap, almost trapping us to death. Your people are here just right, help me seal the scene and check the source of the explosion device. Zhe Kai was stunned for a moment, and immediately clicked, turned around and instructed his subordinates to start the action. But there was a flash of suspicion in his eyes, and he obviously did not completely believe in the term trap. Meng Qi didn't explain anything more, but just patted Yutong on the shoulder and signaled her to go back and rest first. The scene was soon blocked by the police. Meng Qi stood at the entrance of the alley, watching Zhe Kaisen's busyness, and was analyzing what she had just happened in her brain. Meng Qi's name, as well as the information he left behind, all show that the other party is not only familiar with her actions, but may have even penetrated into the police. Otherwise, how could she calculate every step of hers so accurately? Danqi, always tell me, is this related to that letter? Zhe Kai walked over and asked in a low voice, staring at her with a sharp look, I have taken a lot of risks when I help you adjust the file. If you know anything, don't be fooled by me. Meng Qi smiled and asked, Zhe Kai, do you think I am the one who will hurt you? However, I want to ask, is there any abnormalities within the police recently? For example, are there anyone particularly interested in the old case, or are they often contacting people outside? Zhe Kai was stunned, his face slightly changed. What do you mean? Nothing is meaningful. Meng Qi was very proud and said with a relaxed voice. I just thought that the trap today was designed so exquisitely, as if someone knew in advance that I would come here. Do you think there would be any ghosts? Zhe Kai's eyes flashed with a complicated and confusing emotion, and his heart seemed to be ignited. Insider? Why did she think of this layer? Could she really see something? No, this matter needs to be found out clearly. If someone really leaks the secret, then the problem will be big. Meng Qi didn't ask any more, but just patted him on the shoulder. Zhe Kai, thank you for your hard work. I'll go back and sort out the search first. Let's talk about it when there is a result. After saying that, she turned away and the corners of her mouth slightly slung. She has successfully posed a suspicion by Zhe Kai. Next, he will check internal problems by himself. And she must focus on Ming Hui. The complex emotion captured by reading the mind made her feel that Ming was not just a cold-blooded enemy, and the story behind him might be darker than she thought. When she got home, Meng Qi sat in the book room, and the papers left by Ming Hua were opened on the table. She closed her eyes, focused her mind again, and tried to analyze the remaining emotions more deeply. This time, she felt a clearer thread. It was a deep resentment, like a scar left after being betrayed, mixed with the righteousness. Ming Qi. Who are you? Meng Qi opened her eyes quietly and muttered. Her intuition told her that this person had an inseparable connection with the old case 10 years ago, or perhaps he was the key to solving all the gangs. The night was getting deeper, and the lights in the bookroom reflected on her face, which looked particularly firm. She knew that today's crisis was just the beginning and the real dispute was still at the forefront. But no matter who Ming Hu is, no matter what secrets he has hidden behind him, she will not retreat. Because it was not only for the truth, but also for herself, for the girl who lost everything 10 years ago. Outside the window, the city's lights were still flashing, like countless eyes exploring. Meng Qi's eyes penetrated the night and locked in an unknown direction. She picked up her cell phone and sent Yutong a message. Tomorrow, continue to check Lin Zhao's ropes. Also, help me dig up this man named Mingyu. I want to know everything about him. The morning light penetrated through the gaps in the window into the book room. Meng Qi sat at the table, her eyes focused on a thick copy of the file. These are old case data that Zhe Kai has dubbed a few days ago. Although most of the content has been blackened or deleted, she can still smell abnormalities from the lines of the characters. The incident of the link that was lost 10 years ago was ostensibly characterized as running away from home, but the file mentions some undisclosed target verdicts pointing to unknown activities near the desertification warehouse in the north of the city. Her parents' car accidents were also promptly concluded, and no target or evidence was mentioned in the report. Sister Meng Qi, look at this. Yutong sat aside, holding a notebook computer in her hand, and a scan of an old report was displayed on the screen. This is an article from a local newspaper 10 years ago, mentioning that a woman named Lin Xiao in the mist case had a quarrel with a mysterious man a few days before the mist. The eyewitness said that the man was wearing a black shirt and a mask on his face, which looked suspicious. But the police did not follow up at that time. Meng Qi took the computer and quickly glanced at the report, narrowing her eyes. Black clothes, masks. This is very similar to the black shadow mentioned in Zhang Daoi's heart. Lin Xiao may have been targeted before he missed, and this person may be Ming Wei. Ming Yu? Yutong was stunned for a moment and immediately responded, "Are you the one who said anonymously?" But why did he tell Lin Xiao? Also, what happened 10 years ago? How could he have something to do with your family tragedy? Meng Qi did not answer directly, but picked up the paper left by Zhang Mingyu from the table, and wrote, "The truth from 10 years ago is far darker than you imagined." Her fingers rubbed the words lightly, and the complex emotions captured by the mind when the warehouse exploded, resentment, pain, and a certain righteousness. She said in a low voice, "Mingyu is not a single picker. He has a deep connection with the old case, and may even be the spokesperson for some greater power. We have to dig deeper and find his true identity." Yutong clicked the head and started searching for more traces about Lin Xiao and the missed cases on the computer. Meng Qi picked up her phone and read Zai Kai's number. "Hey, Zai Kai, I have new discoveries here. The missed case 10 years ago may be related to a man in black clothes. Do you have any records inside, or the suspect's file?" Zai Kai on the phone was silent for a moment, and there was a bit of fatigue in his voice. "Danqi, why are you still catching on to this case? I said last time that the above will not allow you to make any old accounts. If you go deeper, you will be able to pull people you shouldn't touch. Why don't you touch someone?" Meng Qi stopped him, his language became a little cold. "Shikai, are you saying that someone inside the police are suppressing this case? Or is someone who has known the truth for a long time, and is he deliberately instigating?" Zai Kai's words were filled with excitement and he immediately said in a low voice, "I don't mean that. I just remind you not to play too much. I can help you check the file again, but you have to guarantee that you won't be too big." "Okay." Meng Qi's mouth slightly, her language calmed down. "Then help me check, who are the investigation teams that were responsible for misunderstanding cases 10 years ago? Also, have any colleagues expressed unusual interest in this case recently?" After closing the phone, Meng Qi leaned on the back of the chair, closed her eyes, and recalled the hesitation in Zakai's heart when the warehouse exploded. He mentioned, inside, and there was also a secret worry about ejaculation. This made her more convinced that there was a problem within the police, and someone might even have contacted Mingfu. She knew that relying on files and cables was not enough, she had to take the initiative to dig out more secrets with her mental skills. A few hours later, Zai Kai posted a message that she would meet at a cafe near the municipal bureau, saying that there was new progress. Meng Qi brought some of the information compiled by Yutong and arrived at the right time. There were not many people in the cafe. Zai Kai was already sitting by the window, with a file bag on his hand, and his face was a bit heavy. Walking with him was also a strange young policeman, wearing plain clothes and sitting hiding with his eyes. "Danqi, this is Xiao Li, a member of the missed case investigation group that year, and now he is working in the file room." Zai Kai pointed to the young man next to him, and his language was dull. "He has some impression of what happened 10 years ago. I'll let him come together and talk to you in person." Dream Chi clicked her head, sat down, and her eyes were locked on Xiao Li. On the surface, she just smiled casually and asked, "Officer Li, you should remember some details about the misunderstanding 10 years ago, right? For example, did you find any suspicious characters or abnormal traces at that time?" Xiao Li lowered his head and said with a little unnatural voice, "It's been so long, I can't remember it. At that time, I was a newcomer, responsible for running errands, and the specific investigations were decided by the people above. Is that right?" Meng Qi smiled and picked up the coffee, took a sip, her eyes pierced like a sharp knife, piercing Xiao Li's heart. Her consciousness quietly unfolded, and her mind was like an invisible net, quickly capturing the other party's voice. How could this woman ask so much? She won't know anything, right? No, you can't show off your pockets. The above said that you can't mention that person. If you were found out that I took the money, it's over. Xiao Li's heart was like a group of irritating, and he was almost overflowing with fear and anxiety. Meng Qi's mouth slightly slapped, put down the coffee cup, and her temperament was still gentle. Officially, don't be nervous, I just asked casually. I heard that there was a man in black clothes at that time, which was related to the misunderstanding. Do you have any impression of it? Xiao Li's face changed, and the spoon in his hand almost fell off, and he hurriedly said, No, I haven't heard it. I really don't remember it, please ask someone else. Oh no, how did she know about black wind clothes? Could she find out what she found? No, I have to inform the side tightly, so I can't let her dig any further. Xiao Li's heart became more and more panicked, and even with a sense of murder. There was a cold light in Meng Qi's eyes, but her face was not sarcastic. She turned her head to Zhe Kai. The work in the file room is very important, right? Police officer Li must have good abilities when he can adjust it there. However, I heard that someone has recently exposed old case information. Have you checked it inside? Zhe Kai had a brow and just wanted to say something. Xiao Li suddenly stood up, his voice a little quick. I have something to do, let's go first. Let's talk. Sit down. Meng Qi's voice suddenly became cold, and her eyes stared at him. Police Li, what are you running for? We haven't finished talking yet. Xiao Li was stunned, and cold sweat broke out in his head, his heart was already shattering. She knew, she must know. How could it be? How did she see through me? No, I have to run, otherwise. His heart was filled with hope, and he even started to count the escape route. Meng Qi didn't give him the opportunity, so she stood up, walked to him, and said in a low voice, Officially, I will tell you not to tilt your brain. Expose your file, accept receipts, and may even be involved in the truth of the old case. If these things are known by the above, do you think you can still escape? Xiao Li's face turned pale in an instant, and her legs softened. She fell back to the chair and her mouth was tied. You nonsense. I haven't had these things. Have you been fucked? Meng Qi sneered and leaned over to him. Her voice was so low that he could only hear it. Then why are you keep saying, you can't let her dig it down? Also, who are you thinking about notifying? Is it Mingyu or the bigger entourage behind you? Xiao Li's pupils suddenly collapsed, as if they were hit by lightning, and the whole person froze in place, without even the force of rebelling. His heart was completely exposed, full of fear and collapse. How could she know Meng Qi? Who is she? It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. Zhe Kai also realized that something was wrong at this time. He looked at Xiao Li with a deep voice. Danqi, what's going on? What were you just saying? Meng Qi stood up straight and turned to Zekai, your colleague is probably not clean. He has something to do with the old case and may even have been providing information to the people behind the scenes. You'd better take him back now and have a good review. I promise that he knows more than you think. Zhe Kai's face darkened, his eyes swept over Xiao Li with a sharp look, and immediately stood up, speaking coldly. Xiao Li, come back to the bureau with me. You have to explain some things clearly. Xiao Li still wanted to slap, but when he looked at Zhe Kai's eyes, he finally gave up his resistance and followed him away from the cafe with his head. Meng Qi looked at their backs and slighted on the corners of her mouth. In this scene, she used her mental therapy to easily slam Xiao Li's psychological defense line and successfully pulled out the insider. Although this was just the first step, she knew that this move had already quarreled the other party's deployment. When he got home, Meng Qi sat down and received a message from Zhe Kai on his phone. Xiao Li has asked. He admitted that he has been providing information to a person named Meng Qi for years, helping him to hide the details of the old case, and even revealing the progress of your investigation. He didn't know Meng Qi's true identity, but he only knew that every time the other party contacted him, he used encrypted phones and voices to deal with it. However, he mentioned a location, a scrap clinic in the south of the city, saying that Meng Qi had asked him to send something there. Meng Qi looked at the news and narrowed her eyes slightly. The Qingnan brake clinic was the specific cable that Minghua exposed for the first time. She immediately asked Yutong to check the relevant information and found that the clinic was closed due to a medical accident 10 years ago. Later, it became a local urban saying that there was a ghost inside and no one dared to get close. What shocked her even more was that one of the responsible persons in the clinic had had a business deal with her father 10 years ago. Sister Meng Qi, is this a coincidence? Yutong looked at the information on her computer and was amazed. Did your father know something that year, so he was? Don't guess. Meng Qi interrupted her, her temperament calm but determined. The truth has not come out yet, everything is a hypothesis. Yutong, you continue to dig out the background of the clinic, especially the medical accident that year, and the whereabouts of the responsible person. I want to see someone and confirm something. In the evening, Meng Qi came to the municipal bureau, and Zai Kai was waiting for her outdoor interview, but her face was still heavy. He saw her and slammed his head. Shaoli said everything he told me, but Ming Qi's background is too clean and it seems that it doesn't exist at all. We tried to trace the encrypted phone, but the other party had already cut off the contact. What are you going to do? Meng Qi did not answer directly, but instead asked, Shakai, if I tell you, Ming Qi may be just the spokesperson, and there is a bigger mastermind behind the scenes behind you. Do you believe it? Zai Kai was stunned and immediately said to his eyebrows, do you have any evidence? Not yet. Meng Qi smiled, her eyes cold, but I will find it. The abandonment clinic in the south of the city is a breakthrough. I plan to go and see, are you interested in together? Zai Kai was silent for a moment, and finally pointed, okay. But this time, you have to listen to my arrangements. I will take a few people to ensure safety. Meng Qi didn't object, but just pointed it a little, and thought it secretly. She knew that Zai Kai's addition was necessary, but the real danger still depends on the mental health. Since Ming Hu dared to expose the clinic location, he showed that he had already prepared and would never be simple in this situation. When she got home, Meng Qi was about to organize the information and found that there was an extra letter on the desk. The envelope was exactly the same as before, and the letters were also the familiar black steel pen. Her heart tightened and quickly opened the letter paper, only seeing it. Miss Meng Qi, your action is very fast, but are you really ready to face everything? Stop investigating, otherwise your family secret will no longer be a secret. Ming Hui. The words on the letter were like a heavy note, smashing into her heart. Family secret. Although the death of her parents was characterized as a car accident, she never believed it was an accident. And Mingxiu's sentence undoubtedly implies that he knows more, and may even hold a certificate that is enough to destroy her. Meng Qi's fingers tightened slightly, and the letter paper was pinched out of folds, but her eyes became more and more cold. She closed her eyes, her consciousness focused on the letter, trying to capture any remaining emotions. This time, she felt a strong sense of threat, and was filled with pride, as if the other party was enjoying her piercing. Threat me? Meng Qi opened her eyes quietly and sneered, Mingyu, do you think this can make me retreat? Since you dare to play this game, let's see who can laugh to the end. She picked up her cell phone and sent Yutong a message, tomorrow morning, prepare all the information and go to the Qingnan clinic with me. Also, she sent the photo of Mingxi's letter to Zai Kai, so that he knew that the other party had begun to counterattack. The night was getting deeper, and Meng Qi stood in front of the window, staring far away at the lights in the city. The obvious threat ignited a burst of anger in her heart, but at the same time, it also made her more assured. Whether it is the family secret or the truth of the old case is shattered, she will reveal it one by one. And reading the mind will be her most powerful weapon. The darkness outside the window is like an invisible net, covering the entire city. And Meng Qi's eyes were like a beam of light, penetrating the mist and locking in an unknown direction. She knew that this wise struggle had just reached orgasm, and Mingyu, no matter who you are, I would have caught you. The night is as bright as ink. The scrap clinic in the south of the city is hidden in the old street. There are deserted ruins around it. The lights on the road have already been extinguished, and only a few tiny moonlight are left to outline the structure's wheels. The iron door of the clinic was filled with scattered leaves, and the door was full of grass, and a decadent smell was filled with the air, like a cemetery forgotten by time. Meng Qi stood at the entrance of the alley that was far away, wearing a black sportswear, her eyes slapped around her coldly, and her ears were her low-sounding instructions and Yutong's tight breathing. "Danqi, remember, don't act alone." Zai Kai stood beside her, whispering, holding the talker in his hand, and stayed in touch with several plainclothes police officers ambushing nearby at any time. "We have already arranged controls around the clinic, and once we appear, we will immediately wrap around. Since he dares to stay at this place, he says he is not afraid of being timid. Don't be driven away by him." Meng Qi pointed her head, her mouth slightly sang, and her lingering was relaxed. "Don't worry, Zai Kai, I want to catch him more than you. However, this kind of person will not show up easily, so we have to give him a hate. Sure." Zai Kai glanced at the file bag in her hand. "Are you referring to these fake information? Can this be done? Whether it's okay, you'll know after trying." Meng Qi patted the file bag, which contained some old case cables created by Yutong. On the surface, it seemed that she had dug up the key evidence, but in fact it was all fake and spelled. Her plan was very simple. She released a voice through the news of Xiao Li's arrest, pretending that she had already grasped Ming Wei's fatal handle and forced the other party to take the initiative to appear. And reading the mind will become her biggest trump card in this psychological challenge. Yutong stood aside, holding a small recording equipment in her hand, and a tight voice. "Sister Meng Qi, I still think it's too risky. Since Ming Hui can design a warehouse trap, he might have guessed that we will come here to set up a set. Once he doesn't come, or if he comes, there will be ambush." "He will come." Meng Qi cut her off, her eyes firmly. "Ming Yu is not an ordinary person. He is even more obedient to the old case than me. Every letter and every thread he left is trying to find out my bottom line. He wants to see me collapse, but I don't give him this opportunity. Yutong, you are responsible for recording, don't worry about anything else, safety first." Yutong bit her lip. Although she was very upset, she still tilted her head and tightened her equipment. Zai Kaiji finally checked the talk machine and said in a deep voice, "Okay, the action begins. After you go in, we will monitor it outside. Whenever there is something unusual, go in and support it immediately." Meng Qi didn't say more. She walked towards the clinic's iron door, and her feet were as stable as if she was walking in her backyard. The iron door has been damaged for a long time, and it will make a harsh squeak sound when you push it lightly, like some ominous sign. She crossed the door and entered the clinic. The light column of the flashlight swept over the broken hall, reflecting the ground-broken glass and the medical equipment. The smell of a piece of disinfectant water was still left in the air, making people creepy. Her consciousness quietly unfolded, and her mind was like an invisible net, quickly covering the surrounding space, trying to capture any unusual silence. However, there was a dead silence inside the clinic, and there was no sound in my heart. This made her heart tight. Ming Hui, if she was nearby, she might have had psychological protection, or she wouldn't be here at all. "Mingyil, I know you're looking at me." Meng Qi stopped walking and stood in the middle of the hall, with a cold voice, carrying a slit. "Don't you want to know how many I found? There is a file here about the missed case 10 years ago and the death of my parents. If you want to see it, come and get it yourself." Her voice was heard in the empty clinic, as if she was deliberately amplified to someone. She placed the file bag on an old table, then stepped back and waited quietly. Time passed by minute by second, and there was still no silence around the surroundings, only the occasional voice from outside the window squeezing her nerves like murmurs. Just when she almost thought the plan failed, a low laugh suddenly came from the depths of the building, as if it was rolling out from behind the wall, carrying a chill of coldness. Meng Qi's heart was shocked, her eyes closed in the direction of the sound, and her mind was instantly concentrated, trying to capture the other party's voice. "Miss Meng Qi, you are really proud." The sound suddenly started, carrying the sand that was deliberately lowered, as if it had been processed. But do you think this kind of little trick can scare me to appear? The file is fake, right? I guess your real purpose is to use your special ability to explore my heart. Meng Qi's mouth slightly slight, but she didn't expect that the other party would directly break her mind. She didn't deny it, but just sneered, Meng Qi, you know a lot. But since you know my abilities so well, why don't you dare to come out? Or are you afraid that I will see through your secret? Secret? The voice turned on and laughed even colder. Danqi, you overestimate yourself. Your ability is indeed a jealous person, but since I dare to come, I will not let you succeed. Did you really prepare to face the truth 10 years ago? Your parents are not a simple car to die. This sentence is like a heavy note, smashing into Meng Qi's heart. Her fingers were tightened unconsciously, her eyes were as cold as ice, but her voice was still calm. Oh, don't sell the secrets. Since you know, just say it clearly. Otherwise, I will dig it out by myself, so that you regret not finishing your words today. Dig it out? The voice mocked. Okay, then I'll give you a trace. Your father, who had a deal that he couldn't see with the responsible person of this clinic. The number of people who missed the case was the price of this deal. Your parents' death was just because they knew too much and had taken the way for some people. If you want to know more, come to the second floor if you dare. The sound came to an abrupt end and the clinic fell into dead silence again. Meng Qi stood there, flying in her brain and analyzing the other party's words. Her father has a deal with the clinic's responsible person. This matched the information she found, but the word price made her feel uneasy. Meng Qi was obviously trying to move her mind, but she knew that she could not be driven away by the other party. She picked up the talk machine and said to Zhe in a low voice, he is on the second floor, and the sound is coming from the east. I'll go up and see. You're ready. Danqi, don't be moved. Zhe Kai's voice came from the conversation machine, with anxiety, wait for us to go together. Before he finished speaking, Meng Qi had turned off the talk machine and walked to the stairs leading to the second floor. Her straightforwardness told her that she could only face the challenge. Reading the mind is her trump card, and she obviously prepared to fight back. The staircase was broken and squeaked sounds every step, as if it was about to collapse at any time. Meng Qi walked up carefully, and the flashlight swept across the corridor on the second floor, reflecting rows of broken ward doors, with faded tags left on the doors. There was a more intense smell of disinfectant water in the air, mixed with a certain unspeakable odor, making people feel swelling in their chests. Her consciousness spread again, trying to capture the bright heart, but she still gained nothing. At this moment, a light sound suddenly came from the ward on the inside, like a metal collision. Meng Qi's eyes closed there, walked slowly, and opened the door. There was no one in the ward, only one iron bed and a few scattered medical equipment. The window was blocked by wooden boards, and the air was so condensed that it was suffocating. Meng Qi was about to leave when she suddenly noticed a corner of paper under the bed, as if she was left intentionally. She squatted down and lifted the paper, only seeing a few lines of words written on it. Danqi, congratulations on getting to this point. But do you really think that reading can help you win? Look at your feet. Her heart sank. When she looked down, she found a faint symbol engraved on the floor under her feet, like some ancient tag. The next second, a low buzzing sound suddenly echoed in the ward, like a certain electronic device being activated. Her brain suddenly stinged, as if she was being pierced into her brain by an invisible needle, and her mind became blurred in an instant. Is this a blow? Meng Qi gritted her teeth and forced herself to stand firm, but the buzzing voice became stronger and stronger, which made her mind reading completely lose its spirit, and even her basic thinking became difficult. She immediately realized that this was a trap that Ming Wang set on her abilities, a kind of high-frequency interference device that was specially used to weaken her perception. Miss Meng Qi, how do you feel? Ming Hui's voice sounded again. This time it no longer appeared from behind the wall, but directly at the door of the ward. A man in a black dress walked in slowly, wearing an expressionless mask on his face, revealing only a pair of cold eyes. He was tall and steady, as if he had expected her to be hit. Meng Qi raised her head hard, her eyes were still sharp, but the size was already sweating. She tried to start reading the mind again, and found that her consciousness seemed to be stuck in a wall and could not touch the other person's heart at all. She sneered, and said with a sound of sha xiao, "Mingyu, you are indeed ready to come. But, with this little trick, do you think you can suppress me?" Pressure. Ming Hui smiled lowly, his voice as cold as ice. "Danqi, I just let you understand that your mental skills are not something you can do. Do you really think the truth from 10 years ago can be easily revealed? Your parents took the initiative to participate in that deal that year. Their hands were covered with the blood of innocent people. Do you still have to continue investigating and destroy their only remaining reputation?" This sentence is like a knife, piercing straight into Meng Qi's heart. Her pupils suddenly contracted, and her parents' gentle smiles appeared in her brain, as well as the cold spiritual hall at the funeral 10 years ago. Her reason told her that she was deliberately challenging her, but the emotions were like being torn apart, and pain and anger were almost swallowing her. "You're talking nonsense." Meng Qi gritted her teeth, her voice trembling with an unquestionable determination. "My parents would never do this." Ignoring, "Do you think a few words can sway me? If you really have evidence, take it out, otherwise, close your mouth." Ming Fu didn't say anything anymore, just took out a photo from his pocket and threw it under her foot. In the photo, it is a photo of her father and a strange man, and the background is the door of this clinic. On the back of the photo, there is also a line of small words written, "The transaction is completed, the price has been paid." Meng Qi's fingers shook and rolled up the photo, her eyes scattered like a group of numbness. She didn't want to believe it, but the authenticity of the photos made her unable to respond. Her mind almost collapsed in an instant, and the buzzing interference made her consciousness even more confused, and she even began to doubt her intention of pursuing it. "Danqi, stop." Mingxi's voice was low, with a hint of confusion. "The truth will only make you more painful. Your parents are not the heroes you imagined. Their death is just caused by their own fault. You are still in a state of regression." "Regress?" Meng Qi raised her head suddenly, and a burst of anger arose in her eyes, as if she was pulling herself back from the collapsed edge. "Obviously, you underestimate me. No matter what my parents did, I have to know the whole truth. If you want to use these movements to me, it will only make me more sure." Her voice lens was so powerful that she felt like she was applying a shot of her heart. Although her mental health was disturbed, her willpower burst out with shocking sexuality at this moment. She forced herself to ignore the influence of the buzzing voice, her eyes closed and clear, trying to find a break from his body language and language. Ming Su was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting that she could adjust her mind so quickly. His eyes flashed through a complicated emotion, and he immediately snorted coldly, "Okay, since you are not afraid of death, I will let you see what real darkness is. 10 years ago, I was also a victim, and my sister was a member of the misunderstanding. And your father was a direct help." This sentence shocked Meng Qi. She didn't expect Ming Wei to take the initiative to expose her mobile phone. Her brain was flying rapidly, and she grabbed this breakthrough, and her voice retorted coldly, "Is that right? Then why didn't you report it directly, but instead use this method to lure me over? Mingyu, you said you were a victim, but your methods were like a real mastermind behind the scenes. Tell me, who was instructing you behind the scenes? Or was it that you were part of that transaction?" Minghui's body stiffened slightly. Although she was wearing a mask, Meng Qi carefully captured a movement in his eyes. She knew that she guessed it right, Mingyu was not just a simple revenge, he had a bigger secret behind him. "Danqi, you are very smart." Mingxi was silent for a moment, and there was a little coldness in his voice. "But there are some things you will never know. Since you refuse to stop, then be prepared to bear the consequences." Before he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed a device in his hand, and the buzzing sound in the ward instantly increased to a new level. Meng Qi's head seemed to be torn apart, almost fainting. But she clenched her teeth and held her back, her eyes still staring at Ming Xi. can't run away. Meng, who didn't say anything anymore, turned around and walked towards the door, obviously not planning to continue to quarrel. At this moment, a sudden burst of footsteps came from outside the clinic, and Zai Kai's voice sounded from the conversation machine, "Danqi, we are here." "Where is he?" Ming Yu took a short walk and obviously didn't expect the police to move so quickly. He snorted coldly, quickly rushed out of the ward, and disappeared into the corridor. Meng Qi wanted to chase after him, but she couldn't act because of the sound of buzzing, so she could only watch him leave with a slight eye. A few seconds later, Zai Kai brought someone into the ward. When he saw Meng Qi's condition, he immediately turned off the interference device. The sound of the buzz disappeared, and Meng Qi's consciousness finally recovered, but the whole person was sweating profusely and almost lost. "Danqi, are you okay?" Zai Kai held her, his lingering and worried. "Where is Meng Hui? Have you run away?" "Run?" Meng Qi gasped, her eyes still cold, but he exposed more. "He said that he was the brother of the victim of the misunderstanding case, and that my father was helping. Kai, the water behind this case is deeper than we imagined." Zai Kaiying said in a low voice, "No matter what he says, we will find out. You have to rest first, this place is not safe, so we will withdraw." Dream Chi clicked the head, raised the photos on the ground, and looked at the content on it with a complex look. Ming Wei's reversal has almost broken her, but her willpower has made her reluctantly win a game in this psychological challenge. She knew that this was just the beginning, the real truth, and she was waiting for her ahead. The night was darker, and the sound outside the clinic was like a whisper, as if complaining about the secret from 10 years ago. Meng Qi leaned on Zai Kai's shoulder and walked out of the clinic, her eyes becoming more and more stable. "Ming, you can't escape. No matter who you are, no matter what force you have, I will reveal everything." The night was heavy, and a waste factory on the edge of the city felt vaguely hidden in the dark. The iron-spotted walls and broken factories were like sleeping giants, quietly waiting for the final decision. Meng Qi stood in the open space outside the factory, and the cold wind blew over her face, bringing a biting mood, but her eyes were unusually calm, and she held tightly in her hand an anonymous letter she had just received, another pic from Meng Hui. The letter reads, "Miss Meng Qi, come on, this is the last stage. The truth from 10 years ago is waiting for you here. If you dare to come." This is the first time she took the initiative to meet her after the Mingyu autologous clinic. Meng Qi knew that this was not only an invitation, but also the final test of her will. During the past few days of investigation, Yutong excavated a key evidence, a record tape from 10 years ago, recording a secret transaction between Ming Hu and the clinic's responsible person, involving illegal body experiments. Her father was designed as a car and killed only because he refused to continue participating in the crime. The victims of the missed case, including Ming Fu's sister, are all victims of this experiment. The Ming Hu is an enemy on the surface, but in fact he has long become a puppet of behind-the-scenes forces, and has even participated in more crimes by hand. "Danqi, this place is too dangerous." Zai Kai stood beside her, wearing a protective vest, and looked at the factory with a heavy face. "We have already set up controls around the surrounding area, but Mingyu is too cunning." "What trap did he set up again?" "You." "Shikai, I must go." Meng Qi stopped him, his voice calm and unquestionable. "This is the last battle. If I don't face him with myself, there will never be a conclusion of the grievances 10 years ago. You will be outside and give me half an hour. If there is any abnormality, come in immediately." Zai Kai's eyebrows were still trying to say something, but when he looked at Meng Qi's eyes, he finally sighed, "Okay, but you have to wear this." He passed by a miniature communication device, "Keep in touch at any time and don't let himself in the absolute." Meng Qi connected to the communication device, clicked the head, and turned around and looked at Yutong beside her. Yutong held a piece of information in her hand, her eyes filled with worry. "Sister Meng Qi, I have handed over the copy of the recording tape to Zai Kai, and the bank flow and Mingwei's communication records that the clinic is responsible for, have been sorted out. As long as you catch him, these certificates are enough to convict him. But do you really want someone to go in?" Yutong, don't worry. Meng Qi patted her shoulder and raised her lips slightly. I have my trump card. This time, I won't let him run away again. After saying that, she went to the entrance of the factory and walked steadily, as if she had already made all the preparations. The iron door was covered in vein, and when it was pushed open, it made a harsh friction sound. It was pitch black inside, and only a few moonlight came down from the top of the hole, reflecting the wasteland and dust. Meng Qi turned on the flashlight, and the light column swept around, and the mind was opened at the same time. The mind was red like an invisible net, quickly covering the entire space, trying to capture any abnormality in the picture. Miss Meng Qi, you're coming faster than I expected. A low voice came from the depths of the factory, carrying familiar sand and sarcasm. I thought you would have retreated from the clinic that time. Meng Qi's heart was tight, her eyes were locked in the direction of the sound, and she didn't stop her pace. She responded calmly, Ming, don't pretend to be a god. Since you dare to ask me, you should know that I have never been afraid of it. I have almost found out the truth 10 years ago. You still have the strength behind you, and you can't escape any of them today. Is it almost the same? Minghui's smile was low and harsh, as if it was rising from all directions, making it difficult to judge his specific position. Danqi, do you really think you have held everything? Your reading skills are really bad, but some secrets are hidden deeper than you imagined. Come on, walk in, I'll wait for you in the car inside. Meng Qi didn't reply again, but just held the flashlight tightly and moved forward slowly in the direction of the sound. Her consciousness was full of effort and tried to break through the bright psychological defense line, but the other party was obviously ready, and her heart seemed to be blocked by a wall, and even a single emotional wave could not be detected. She knew that this challenge was not only a comparison of intelligence, but also a competition of will. After walking through several broken corridors, Meng Qi finally arrived at the car inside. In the middle of the car, a man in a black dress was still wearing the expressionless mask on his face, only a pair of cold eyes were exposed. Minghui held a small remote control in his hand, and a machine that looked like an interference device was placed beside her foot, which was obviously prepared to prevent her mental health. Danqi, welcome to the final stage. Mingxiu's voice was low, carrying a sickly excited voice. Do you know? 10 years ago, I watched my sister be taken away by them and became a victim of the experiment. I vowed to revenge, but later, I found that the price of revenge was to become one of them. Your father also tried to stop it that year, but his weakness only changed to death. Who do you think I hate? Meng Qi looked at him calmly, her language was calm and swaying. Minghui, I regret that your sister is the victim. But this is not the reason you have become a helping person. I have a recording belt in my hand, recording the transactions you have with the clinic's responsible person, and also the evidence of your participation in the subsequent experiment. Do you think that if you hide under the guise of revenge, you can clear your sins? Minghui's body froze slightly, his eyes flashed and panicked, but it was immediately covered. He sneered, pressed the remote control in his hand, and immediately a low buzzing sound in the car, just like the one at the clinic, trying to interfere with her reading. Danqi, your mouth is so hard. But this time, I won't give you a chance to flip the plate again. Do you know what is buried under this factory? The test records from 10 years ago, and the skeletons of the victims. As long as I press another button, everything here will be blown to ashes, including the evidence you found, and yourself. The buzzing sound made Meng Qi's brain tingle, and her heart was almost completely lost, but she forced herself to remain calm. Her eyes were tightly locked, and the corners of her mouth slightly raised. Mingyu, do you think this little trick can still scare me? I've eaten it once at the clinic. Do you think I'll come without preparation? Minghui was stunned, obviously not expecting that her reaction would be so calm. Taking advantage of his moment of sensation, Meng Qi quickly took out a small interference shield from her pocket. This is the technology equipment she specially asked Yutong to find a few days ago, which can neutralize low-frequency interference in a short period of time. She pressed the button, and the buzzing sound instantly weakened. Although it could not be completely eliminated, her consciousness finally opened again, and her mind was like a sharp knife, piercing her inner heart. How could she have this? No, she can't see through me. The evidence must be destroyed, otherwise I will be completely finished. Ming Wei's heart was instantly exposed, full of fear and thorns, as if a hole was torn open. His hands were shaking unconsciously, his eyes were hiding, and he even started to figure out how to detonate the device, and he was as good as he could with her. Meng Qi captured this emotion and sneered, with an unquestionable pressure in her voice. Only, don't stumble. I know what you are afraid of. Are you afraid of the recordings in my hand, those bank flows, and your crimes will be made public? Do you think that by detonating this place, you can erase everything? Stop dreaming, the copy of the certificate has been handed over to the police long ago. If you take action, you will only let yourself die faster. Ming Hui's pupils suddenly collapsed, and his heart seemed to be hit by lightning, and he was afraid that he would almost swallow him. Copy? How could she be? No, I can't sit and wait. But if what she said was true, His heart continued, stabbing and dying, and even began to doubt his plan for every step. Meng Qi was tight and her voice was as cold as ice. Mingyu, your revenge has long changed. Your sister's death is indeed a tragedy, but you chose the ultimate way. You killed more innocent people by hand, including those who you used to threaten me. Do you still remember Lin Xiao? Her mistakes were arranged by you because she discovered your secret. What qualifications do you have to say that you are a victim? This sentence is like the last straw, completely destroying Minghu's psychological defense line. His heart collapsed, fear and guilt poured out like a flood. Lin Xiao, I have no choice, she knows too much, I just want to protect myself. Sister, I'm sorry, I can't avenge you, but instead become a monster. His heart was filled with pain, and he even started to take responsibility, and his hands were trembling and he could hardly hold the remote control. Meng Qi knew that the opportunity was coming. Taking advantage of Ming Hu's turmoil, she quickly rushed forward and overcame the remote control in his hand, while raising her knees hard to his abdomen. Ming Hui hummed and stepped back. The face under the mask was as white as paper. It seemed that she didn't expect her actions would be so decisive. Mingyu, the game is over. Meng Qi looked at him coldly, turned off the equipment, her mind was completely restored, and her reading skills rushed into his heart like a flood, digging out the secrets hidden by every silk. I have also found out the power behind you. The responsible person in the clinic has long been bought by a larger organization, and you are just a piece of their pawn. You think you are a revenge, but in fact, you have no control over your own life. Ming Xuanyi sat on the ground, his eyes empty, as if he had been exhausted from all his energy. His heart had finally collapsed, and his guilt and fear were intertwined, and he had no strength to respond. I'm wrong, I should have stopped a long time ago. But I can't go back. Meng Qi, kill me, I'm not worthy of living. Meng Qi looked at him with a complicated look, without any sympathy. She said in a low voice, Mingyu, your life is not decided by me. The law will punish you as much as you deserve. And all I want is the truth. At this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps came from outside the car, and Zai Kai brought in with several policemen and quickly controlled the Ming Hui. Zai Kai looked at the remote control and interference equipment on the ground, and said to Meng Qi with a heavy face, Huang Qi, you are fine, right? This guy just explained that there was indeed a blasting medicine buried under the factory, but you have taken down the detonating device. Meng Qi pointed the head and patted off the dust on her body, and her lingering words were calm. Zhikai, take him back and review it well. Also, record the audio belt and all the certificates to ensure that the review is open. I want to let the injustice 10 years ago be revealed to the world. Zai Kai pointed at the head and signaled his subordinates to take Ming Hu away. Ming Hui was forced to take action, lowered her head, as if she had lost all her will, and muttered, It's over, it's all. Yutong also ran in at this time and saw that Meng Qi was safe and sound, so she finally relaxed. Sister Meng Qi, you are so bad. I was so anxious outside just now, and I thought. It's okay. Meng Qi smiled, patted her shoulder, and looked far away to the night sky outside the factory. Yutong, thank you for your help these days. Without your information, I wouldn't have been able to get to this point. A few days later, the Municipal Bureau held a public news conference to announce the truth about the incident and related car accidents 10 years ago. Meng Qi was formally filed with charges including multiple murders, illegal experiments and evidence, and the organization behind him gradually emerged under the police investigation. Recordings, bank flows and objection verdicts became the iron certificates of conviction, and the media and the public were silent, claiming that this was the darkest page in urban history was finally revealed. At the launch event, Meng Qi sat in the audience, quietly listening to the results of the investigation. Her parents were proved innocent and their death was reported for refusing to participate in illegal experiments. Although the truth came too late, at least their reputation was cleared. Meng Qi closed her eyes, and her parents' gentle smile appeared in her brain. The pain in her heart seemed to be finally scabbed. Although it still hurts, it is no longer a forbidden area that cannot be touched. Danqi, I've been giving you a lot this time. After the release, Zai Kai walked up to her side, with a little respect in her language. If you don't have your support, this case may always be a joke. Yes, the Bureau plans to hire you as a special consultant. If there is a case in the future, it will be a big deal. Meng Qi smiled and shook her head, thank you, Zai Kai. However, I don't plan to take on this job at a time. My ability can help many people, but it also brings a lot of trouble. I want to take a break for a while, and then continue to help those in need in my own way. Zai Kai was stunned for a moment and immediately pointed, okay, with you. But remember, the door in the bureau will be open for you at any time. Meng Qi didn't say anything anymore, just watched him leave quietly. Yutong came here and said with a smile, Sister Meng Qi, you can finally relax. What are your plans next? Do you want to start a detective office with me? I am responsible for checking the information, you are responsible for reading, we must be invincible. Meng Qi was amused by her and knocked her head lightly, I think beautifully. I don't want to be dragged away by you every day. However, your data sorting ability is indeed good. If you need it in the future, I will ask you to cooperate with you. Yutong curled her lips. Although she was not full, she was still a little bit, and her eyes were full of admiration. Okay, Sister Meng Qi, whatever you say is. As long as you continue to do these things, I will always follow you. Meng Qi smiled and shook her head, her eyes far away from the venue. The sunlight came through the window, illuminating her face, as if she was covering her with a warm light. The shadow of 10 years finally dissipated at this moment. She knew that her parents' injustice had been cleared, and she herself had also walked out of pain and became stronger. A few days later, Meng Qi came to her parents' grave, and stood quietly in front of the tombstone with a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. The wind blew over and brought a fragrance of flowers. She said in a low voice, Dad, Mom, the truth is revealed. You can feel at ease. In the future, I will use my abilities to help more people like us to get out of the darkness. I will not be held over again, I will live well. After saying that, she placed the bouquet in front of the grave and turned away, her back looked particularly firm in the sun. Her reading skills were once her heaviest burden, but now, it has become her strongest weapon. She knew that there would be countless challenges in the future, but she was ready to protect the justice of more people in her own way. The sky of the city is blue and the sun shines everywhere. Meng Qi walked on the street, her ears were filled with the noise of the crowd and the slumber of the car. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, revealing a long-lasting relaxed smile. She knew that this city still had countless secrets, but no matter how deep the darkness was, she would use her own light to illuminate those forgotten corners. From now on, she is no longer the girl trapped by the past, but a true incarnation of justice, carrying the spiritual reading and continuing her journey.